It's time we go beyond the handshake. It's time we deepen business relationships and take it to the next level of cultivating and building relationships past that business card exchange and beyond the initial handshake. Welcome to Beyond the Handshake, where we will take a deep dive into getting to know businesses and business owners, why they do what they do in business, what drives them to success, why they work so hard, what they struggle with, what they succeed in, and tips they have for other businesses to learn from their experiences. I am Lucy Miller, founder and CEO of Women Connect. Let's go beyond the handshake. Okay, I am thrilled to be here today with Chelsea Ryckis, founder and president of Ethos Benefits. So excited you're here today.
Thanks for having me. This is a beautiful studio and you look amazing as always.
As you too. So excited. So I love the name of your company. I want to start there. So tell me about Ethos, how you chose that name. To me, it means character and morals and goodness. And tell me.
So Ethos Benefits, actually the name of our original company when we first started was Donovan Financial, which is my husband's name and all the things. And it was really confusing for people because they're like, wait, financial? Do you do 401ks? When obviously we do employee benefits and healthcare. So about 3 years ago, we went through this entire rebrand and we really focused on our ethos of what are we actually trying to do in the market, in the world, like what is our why? So for those of you that don't know, ethos is the guiding character or principle of an organization or a person. And mine has always been transparency. And it's a little bit of a buzzword right now, especially in the health insurance industry. But what it actually means to me is like doing the right thing at all costs, like being
and all the time
when no one's looking, whatever that looks like to tell the truth. And, obviously you're an expert relationship builder and trust is a huge component to that, right?
Integrity, all those words.
Right. So the idea behind Ethos Benefits was to use our guiding why, which is to tell the truth in a very opaque industry and kind of shine a light on all the fraud, waste, and abuse that happens in healthcare, but also to meet other businesses and have an understanding of what is their ethos, right? Like, what is their why? Because when you're attracting and retaining talent, that culture piece of like, what is the value of the organization is so important. Yeah. And if you do it right, your benefits program and your healthcare can be a reflection of that ethos. It doesn't just have to be what's the cheapest plan this year.
Right.
It can truly be a vehicle for culture if you're using the ethos as a guiding principle.
I love that. And so you all do that in not only the relationships and the way you're impacting the benefits purchase, but also in the education piece that you do.
Correct. And empowering employees to actually use their benefits the right way, right? Like the way that we kind of structure our plans is we bring a lot of innovation, a lot of cost savings, things like that. But none of that matters if employees aren't engaging, they aren't using it, they don't find it beneficial, right? And I often see in organizations, there's a big disconnect between what leadership and the C-suite might believe is the mission and the value of a program versus what the end user is actually experiencing. So one of my passions is really bridging that gap and ensuring that, this huge investment, and benefits is normally a number 2 or 3 expense in an organization. Right. If we're putting all of this investment, this capital investment into it, how is our human capital experiencing it? And that's a finesse and almost like an art that a lot of benefit brokers miss, right? Because they come in with these strategies and these ideas, and that's amazing. But again, how are we impacting the people that we're doing it for?
So what are the benefits then that people aren't using as much as that they should be? Like what are some neat things that you all put in place for companies?
So one of my favorite things that we do is we do free cancer treatment.
Amazing.
Free imaging, free outpatient surgeries, free specialty drugs. That's a huge one. Specialty drugs are incredibly expensive.
They are.
And so not only for an employee or a consumer like you and I going and buying them, but also for the business. So normally the number one driver of cost that you'll see, let's say you're a business, you get a renewal for your health insurance and your broker comes in, tells you it's 10%, but don't be worried because everybody else is 20.
Normal, right.
Yeah. A lot of that increase is coming from drug costs and drug spend. Okay. And so that's the easiest area to find fraud, waste, and abuse and lower premiums close to 20-30% really easy without changing anything. And you can do that by giving employees access to free specialty drugs that are shipped from Canada.
Okay.
Or from the UK.
Yes.
Exact same manufacturer, exact same box of drugs, literally the same pill. It's just instead of it being shipped from India or wherever it was manufactured to the US, it hits Canada first, and then Canada's selling it to the US at a fraction of the price.
Wow.
So we use a lot of Canadian pharmacies.
That's amazing. And you're from Canada.
Yes.
So is that how that came about, that you knew about that, or just now your expertise in the industry?
Both. I would say that, yeah, knowing like the standards. Canada actually has higher quality standards when it comes to healthcare and drugs of what they'll allow to be put in front of consumers. Like our FDA is much more strict. So I find it funny because sometimes employees might, they might hear that they're getting their drugs from Canada and they're concerned, and we're like, no, it's actually better.
It's going to be better for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the cancer programs have been really amazing because these are patients that are going to absolutely hit their out-of-pocket max in a traditional health insurance program, right? They're probably going to be missing work. They're going through the hardest thing they've ever gone through in their life. And to be able to say, hey, you can go to the Mayo Clinic, which is, top 10 in the country, maybe top 5 even, and get your cancer treatment for free is huge. And it takes a lot of stress off of the families.
Absolutely.
So I'm really proud of those programs because that's the ethos of like when you shine a light on what's messed up, for lack of a better term, and you're also shining a light on how you can do it better, right? So it's not just like, here's everything that's wrong.
This is how it can be better.
There's a pathway out. And that's actually, we produced a documentary, and that's what the documentary is about too. Yeah.
So tell us about, we'll skip to that. Tell us about the documentary.
So it's called It's Not Personal, It's Just Healthcare.
Okay.
And essentially what it's doing is it's just peeling back the curtain on employer healthcare. And it's showing employers all the different areas that people are benefiting off of them believing this big lie. And the big lie is that there's nothing you can do to control the cost of your healthcare. And unfortunately, the people that are telling them this, like traditional brokers, hospitals, insurance carriers, everyone telling them that, 10% is a good year, or if you got single digits, like you're winning, they're just benefiting off of them not exploring this further and pushing it further. They're financially benefiting. So what we do is we essentially just remove all of those misalignments, and that drives down cost. But yeah, it's really sad that that's the norm. And the documentary is groundbreaking, transformative for organizations that watch it. And to me, it's like, I'm so saddened, honestly, that is so transformative, and it is so
and the health of you as a person is, such an important thing. It's like one of the most important things you need to be taking care of within yourself.
And you look at, business productivity, and let's just talk like operations and efficiencies in business, right? Healthier, happier employees are more productive employees. And when you're offering them better access to care, and even like, think about this, how do you pick, let's say you needed a surgery, how would you go about picking your surgeon?
I would research the surgeons. I'd probably get a referral. That's probably the first thing. I don't know. I've not had to have any major surgeries. Knock on wood. This is amazing. But a referral of a trusted doctor.
Okay.
But then I would do some research.
Right. And
I would hit Google.
Yes, right. Or trusted Google.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what most consumers would do. And that's right. That's the norm. So what's really interesting is there isn't in traditional health insurance plans, like you would probably do exactly what you just said, or a lot of people would ask their family and maybe their uncle had a knee surgery and he's like, you should go see this orthopedist, or I play golf with so-and-so, whatever, right?
Like recognize the name too, like name recognition of hospital.
Because they're on a billboard.
Right.
The bigger the building, right? And let me just start by saying bigger is not better in healthcare. It's usually the exact opposite.
Okay.
And that's really sad because people automatically assume the bigger hospital has the bigger, better doctors. Absolutely not true.
Okay.
So what we find is in traditional healthcare plans, we're making decisions like exactly like we just talked about. And I would have done the same thing prior to doing what I do now. What we do in the plans that we design is there's actually quality data. Because even if you went to Google, you're going to read about their bedside manner, right? It's going to be like, this doctor was an asshole, or this one listened to me and, it's not going to say this is their readmission rates. These are their infection rates. These are their medical malpractice lawsuits that are open. Right. So like, how do we get that data in consumers' hands so that they're confident? Because you're going to pay less for better care. And that's what people don't realize. If you go to a surgeon, let's say a knee surgeon, and their readmission rate is really low, their infection rate's really low, they have really high success, that's going to cost less than going to the biggest hospital where that physician might do a knee surgery once a month, or that surgeon might do a knee surgery once or twice a month versus going to like an outpatient surgery center where they only do knees. They can do it for less money. They can do it better.
Yeah.
And that's higher quality, lower cost than like doing it because your specialist referred you to the largest hospital system that everyone's making more money in. So we design plans where you can actually see like, does this doctor, we had one last week. This is crazy. This surgeon, it was a shoulder surgery for a CEO of a local company in Georgia. He wanted a shoulder surgery. He reached out to us. He's like, take a look at this surgeon. Like everyone's telling me he's the best. This surgeon had wrong patient, wrong surgery. Oh. And then, wrong surgery, wrong patient. So he literally did like a knee surgery on someone that needed like a shoulder surgery.
Oh my word. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And then the second one that's open right now is he did the right surgery on the wrong limb of another patient.
Oh my word.
How pissed off would you be if you are going for a hip replacement and it's the wrong hip? Like, anyways, so it's those.
How does that actually happen? Like,
and what's
no one noticed.
No one noticed. Yeah, exactly. And like, that's what's so interesting about our healthcare system is we don't consume anything in our lives the way we consume healthcare. Like you wouldn't go to Costco to buy a TV and not know what it costs. Right? You wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm going to pick the biggest TV, having no idea what it costs, having no idea if it's...
Charge me, and I'm going to look at the number.
Yeah. So the whole system is just, I don't have to tell anybody. I think everyone knows American healthcare is a crisis. But my message is that once you understand how it works, there's a way out of it that results in better care for your employees at a lower cost and overall happier, more productive workforce.
Amazing. So your ideal client, it sounds so awesome. Your ideal clients are what? Tell us that.
Yeah. So every business can do benefits better, in my opinion. The smaller market, so if let's say you have under 50 employees, it's sometimes a little bit harder depending on what state you are to access these more transparent health plans.
Okay.
But it's definitely doable. I would say you'd need at least 10 employees to really drive home and be able to do these cool, innovative, more cost-effective measures. The businesses that we're working with, I have a small business team that I can send all of that business to.
Wonderful.
But we're generally working 50, 100 plus employees. Okay. We do work all over the nation. So, it doesn't matter what state, doesn't matter what industry. Really, it's about the ethos of the organization. Are we trying to fix this? Like, do we want to bring the highest quality care? Do we believe that better healthcare results in more productive, happier, healthier employees? It's more about mindset than anything else versus there's employers out there that are like, this is a pain in my ass. This is the second biggest expense.
I need to check this box and move on.
For a compliance standpoint. Because once you have over 50 employees full-time, you are mandated by the ACA to offer health insurance.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot of employers will sort of stick around that 50 because they're scared. They'll be at like 48 employees forever and 1099 everyone because they're scared to even have to kind of go down this rabbit hole of healthcare. But it's not as hard as everyone thinks it is, and it's not as expensive as everyone thinks it is if you're designing the plans transparently and you're working with an advisor that isn't trying to make you pay more because they make more.
Because you're doing it the right way and you have integrity. And
yeah.
I love that.
Values here and there.
Absolutely.
They go a long way.
Yeah, they do go a long way. Okay, I want to take us way back.
Sure.
So I was so excited to learn about you as an athlete, and I want to talk about that. So D1, college athlete.
From Canada.
Started playing on your brother's baseball team. And so let's talk about that. It's intriguing and exciting to me, especially when I meet others that are athletes, because there is obviously that innate drive and the grit and the hard work within you. And that translates so much into you as a business owner, as an adult. Like, let's talk about that. So D1, college life? What was that like?
That was amazing. And the best 4 years of my life, honestly, because like anybody, you think like college is hard and, you think like that's such a hard life.
Right.
Like, especially as a D1 athlete, you're getting up 5 a.m., you're working out before everyone's even awake. You're doing your weightlifting, you're doing your strength training, your sprints, whatever. You go to school all day long. And for me, I was pre-med. So I had a really heavy course load. And I had a 4.0. I was like so dedicated. And then, school ends, you go right to practice for 3 or 4 hours. And then you go back home or you go to your dorm and you essentially do homework the rest of the night if you were psychotic like I was. But what that afforded me was a full ride scholarship, which was a game changer because my family, so my mom and my dad own a roofing company in Canada. So I got to grow up like seeing a small business run, right? And my parents were at every game and whatnot. And so I played boys baseball with my brother. I was the only girl in the entire league.
Love that.
I was terrible. I was so bad.
I'm sure you were great, actually.
I was actually pretty bad when I was young, which is okay. But anyways, we were at Thanksgiving one year, and Canadian Thanksgiving is different than American Thanksgiving, by the way.
So when is it?
It's in October.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the first or second Sunday in October.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's totally different time of year. But we were throwing the ball in a backyard, and this gentleman came up to me and he was like, "Have you ever considered playing with the girls?" And I remember like, "No, I play with the boys."
Yeah.
And I was like 15 at the time, like really late to start competitively into softball, because for the Americans listening, like who did I speak with yesterday? Somebody was telling me about their daughter. They're 13 and they're in softball, and like, those conversations for college are literally starting.
I know.
At that age.
My daughter's 8 and she's so excited. We're talking about this today. So I can't wait to share with her what I learned from you. But she's so excited to keep getting better. And she's such a hard worker, but she's been since 6U in softball, and we're not going crazy with it right now. But she loves it. It's fun. It's still really, really fun for her right now.
Right. And then as soon as you kind of commit to the competitive, like travel ball and all the things, a lot of the times you'll see a lot of girls kind of fade out of the sport because it is so intense and they're still so young. And I think somewhere that I was really lucky because I played every sport. I was athlete of the year in high school every year. Like I played literally every single sport. And it wasn't until this person approached me at Thanksgiving and said, "Well, why aren't you playing with the women? Like, you could play Team Canada softball. You could go to the States and get a full ride scholarship and have not put the burden of school on your parents." Yeah. It was like, no way. That's amazing. So then I went to my first practice with the girls. The ball is so different. The pitching is so different. Like everything about the game, it took me a minute. But because I had played all those other sports, I was so athletic that it was easy for me to transition.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then I ended up, it's kind of funny how the scholarship story happened. There was a pitcher recruited on my team to play D1 in Florida. And my coach negotiated me as like a tag along. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. It was literally like, hey, this center fielder, take her. I got a bunch of academic money for the first semester. And so the coach took me on, and he's like, basically they wanted the pitcher. I was like, chopped liver. Yeah. But very clearly athletic and, not a bad investment, but not worth a full ride just yet. And he said, give it a semester, pay for what you have to pay for, get as much academic money as you can. We'll take you on the team and prove yourself.
Awesome.
So then about 1 month into the program, I had replaced a senior in outfield. I was a starter. I got a full ride scholarship.
Show you.
Yeah, I wasn't scared at all. Like, let's go. So, but sometimes people need to take a chance on you. And I think as
I love that.
Women leaders, we need to remember that, if you look back, we didn't get here on our own. So there's always some point in our journey where somebody looked at us and maybe we were not the best versions of ourselves. And they said,
believed in you, said you could do it.
Yeah. And that was my big moment in college when the coach was like, "Hey, we don't have money for you." And that's where my parents, they took out a loan to just let me go and, go to the school in Florida. I live in Calgary, Alberta, which is quite literally across the continent or this way.
Wow. Yeah.
Like it could not be further away. They took out a loan. They helped me. I got academic money, and then to eventually go on to a full ride, team captain, all the things, right? Like it was such a cool experience. And I think that having to prove yourself like that, and it gave me a lot of grit, obviously. But I think a lot of like the younger generations, there's what I'm noticing in the workforce, and not necessarily the employees that I'm hiring, because I don't hire these people, but there's a lot of entitlement.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there's a lack of grit, if you will. And I just feel like the athletes, there's never, if you made it to that level, there's not a question about whether or not you're willing to work hard for something.
Absolutely. Well, so what do you feel like are some qualities of, so grit's obviously one, but that you feel like you've been able to transfer into running your business?
Delayed gratification.
Okay.
And I think that for me, I believe that is the secret sauce to like long-term success in business is, are you willing to work hard despite not seeing the results immediately? And with softball especially,
so good.
You're hitting, if you have a 300 batting average, you're a badass. That means 7 out of 10 times that you go up to the plate, you don't perform. You fail.
You strike out and you walk back to the dugout. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, so if your chance of success is 1 in 3 or 3 in 10, right? 3 in 10. I mean, you got to get used to failing and you got to be okay with that. And mentally, you need to be able to turn around from that strikeout and know that, you know, 2 innings later, you're back up again and it's your time to shine. And I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, hitting a softball or a baseball is actually the hardest thing in sport. It's because the ball is moving.
The bat is moving.
The bat is moving. The softball, especially the rise ball, I mean, that pitch, that trajectory, it's brutal.
We haven't seen that yet in AU.
True.
But
it's coming.
It's coming. I'll have to warn my daughter.
Yes. So. And you have to put so much time into technique, right? Regardless, defense, offense, like there's so much time that goes into doing something, learning it. And then the actual performance piece of like when it clicks and you actually start doing those things every single time. I mean, there's a huge time component. There's a big time value to success in sport. And that's the most transferable skill, is realizing that, you know, what I'm doing this week and what I'm doing this month, I might not see the results for 6 months, maybe even a year.
That's a really great point, because especially someone starting a business or even a few years in, or heck, maybe they've been in business 10 years, it's that daily consistency, knowing that you may not get that sale or that big win tomorrow or today or even next month, but just, you know, having that faith and continuing to work hard and
that's where the ethos comes, right? Like those moments when things aren't going the way that you planned, or you've been busting your ass for years and years, or maybe you're trying something new and you're not seeing the results of that investment of time and money. It's coming back to your ethos and that alignment in what you're doing. And if you don't have that, that's when I believe people start saying they're burnt out or
your
their
belief is shaken.
And then you'll hear things like, just, oh, I'm burnt out. I'm stressed out. Like people use these really big terms and these big emotions, but really it's deeper than that. Like burnout, yes, it does exist, but it happens usually because you're, in my experience, either you have no time management, which I'm absolutely guilty of. And
we were just talking about that.
We're literally
overbooking ourselves.
Yes. Or you're out of alignment. Because what I find is I have abundant energy when I'm doing work that feels good and it feels
fueling you,
and it's in alignment with my ethos. When I'm not, then I'm burnt out, then I'm stressed, then I'm all the things. So
I was listening to a message the other day and it was talking about the difference in stress and pressure. And like pressure is the better way of looking at it, and how you react to that is the secret sauce, because you can react negatively or you can let it really drive you to, you know, perform at your best and really step up. So in sports, that's important, you know, in the business world, that is too.
So true. Yeah. There's this topic I've been pretty passionate about with regards to like building high performing teams. And there's this, there's a tendency that we look at things as like positive or negative, right? And things are either good or they're bad. And when you live in this dichotomy, it's hard to keep people engaged and keep people motivated, because if they're only seeing things in your business through one lens. So something that I've been pretty passionate about is like, if somebody's having a hard time, whether it's on my team or in my life or myself even, instead of just filling, you know, the space in their brain with positive thoughts, like think positively, or don't worry, it's going to get better, or here's the silver lining, like actually getting to the crux of the emotion, right? Like, why are you stressed out? Why do you feel burnt out? Why are you missing deadlines? Like really getting and drilling down and not just throwing positivity at it. That's called toxic positivity. And actually what it does is it makes your employees feel not seen, not heard. And they don't.
Because you're just like, I'm going to be fake. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Like, oh, it's everything works out. No, everything doesn't work out. You know when everything works out? When we're honest and when we get to the real shit and we work on that. Because every problem is fixable. But what's not fixable is, shoving rainbows and butterflies on stuff. So I've grown a lot, I feel like, in the past 5 years with my hiring process and my retention process in just being so real with my team and encouraging them to be honest and give me feedback about how they're doing, as opposed to just saying like, oh, well, we're just really busy right now. Keep smiling, keep going. Yeah. No, what are you feeling? How can I help? Having real conversations.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had a traumatic brain injury.
Plot twist.
I know, plot twist. The backstory is there, other than she's an amazing athlete, you had this traumatic event, and that has also shaped and driven you towards, all that you're doing in the healthcare industry. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So that's actually the part I missed about when you were like, how was college? I'm like, it was the best 4 years until
we were going to get to it.
Until it wasn't. This happened my senior year of college. And it was funny. There's a side of the story that I never tell, and I think I'll share it with you because you make me feel safe.
Oh, good.
So thanks. I was pushing so hard. So I was trying to get into med school.
I can't imagine doing all of that at the same time.
Team captain, medical school. I had just moved in with a boy that I was dating. We had just gotten a puppy dog who was my full responsibility. What a great idea.
Great idea.
Division I athlete. I was the intern for the strength and conditioning team. So not only was I doing strength and conditioning for softball, I was training the football team and all that stuff. So it was literally like nonstop. And I remember my mom saying to me, like, you need to slow down. You're going to burn out. Like, you cannot sustain this, right? And I felt it. Like that higher voice of yourself that you can kind of hear telling you things. And I remember there was this freshman, she was vying for my position. I had it on lockdown, but she said something how she wished she was going to play. And I looked at her and I was like, you're going to play this year. Full well, like, that's my position. Why would I say that to her? Like, yeah, you're going to play this year, right? Like, I just knew. And I don't know like how I knew, but this was like a divine sort of like intervention where I had to be stopped because I wasn't stopping myself. And me being stopped looked like getting hit in the head with a softball, which ended my softball career and it ended my academic career. And it caused me to, I was cleared to play too soon and I made it worse. And I learned so many things along the way. Number one, don't push through a brain injury. That's not a thing.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't push through any injury. But nonetheless, ended up going back to Canada and all the medical bills followed me there. And I couldn't work. I couldn't hold conversations. I was in a brain injury rehab program.
Goodness.
It was such a wild, awful time in my life. And then to have the American medical debt follow me and not have any idea, like, wait, what's a deductible? Why am I thought I had insurance. And that's what 1 in 12 Americans experience, which is medical debt. But when you're going through something like that, not only do you not have income, but you don't even have the ability to read these things and figure it out. So yeah, that absolutely shaped my entire life and my entire world. But I think the part of the story that I don't normally share is just that I knew that I was operating at a pace that was unsustainable. And I wish that I would have, hindsight's 2020. I wish that I would have had the courage to slow down. I wish I would have had the courage to say no. And I feel like maybe I was talking with someone last night. I can't remember if it was you or not, but you know how like young girls, like, and kids these days, parents are teaching them like, if you don't feel comfortable hugging somebody, you don't have to hug them. Versus when I was younger, it was like, go give creepy uncle a...
Right, you have to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a definite message that's important.
Yes. And I feel like had I grown up maybe with a little bit more like encouragement or just around, if it was the society that it is today, which is like we're empowering young women, we're teaching them that it's okay to speak your mind, it's okay to stand up for yourself. I feel like I probably wouldn't have gone that far down the burnout. I'm going to say yes to everybody all the time.
It's a people pleaser.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah, and there.
Been through a lot of therapy to work that one out.
Probably
but
still there. But definitely it's good to say no sometimes. Well, so you have been able to take that experience and confusion and the experience you had with American medical situations to drive you now to help make that a better place for Americans.
Yeah, that's what fires me up every single day is most of the time when American workers are, and here's why I chose employers to focus on, is because employers in this country make the decision for 181 million Americans on who is their insurance carrier, what's their deductible, what is their copay, what doctors can they see or not see.
A decision for their employees,
right? So it's a huge decision to make. It comes with a lot of responsibility. And that's where I get so fired up about it, is because the people that are advising these employers that impact these hundreds of millions of Americans aren't aligned, and again, when you trickle down, everything's about the end user. Like, how are we supporting the whole employee? How are we designing these programs so they want to use it? They're not scared to go to the doctor. I mean, Americans literally pick between, can I afford my medication this month or my bag of groceries? It's wild.
It is wild. Yeah, I wasn't going to share about this, but I have rheumatoid arthritis. I have an extreme, you would know because of the medicine I'm able to take. Right. But I remember when I was 16 and starting on this major drug, how expensive it was. And I believe that we were able to have some sort of copay assistance. Otherwise, it would have been thousands of dollars a month for me to be able to like walk and use my hands as a 16-year-old. And so I've been always so grateful that we were able to, find a solution for that. And I still take that medication. So it's amazing, but so important. And I can't imagine if we hadn't been able to figure that out,
what your life
would be like.
Well, and then, I hear stories like that and I'm so glad you got the help. And it makes me think, what about the people that don't know about these programs, right? Like a copay assistance or, so this might be a good time to plug these programs for people that don't know. There are things called manufacturer's assistance programs where an expensive drug, you can go directly to the manufacturer. Even if you're on a health insurance plan and your copay is $300, if that's too much and you meet this income threshold, or you're under this income threshold, you could get that medication for free just by going directly to the website and applying for this assistance program. But you know what? People don't want to tell you about that. And insurance companies sure as hell don't want to tell you about it because they make rebates. They get money, they get kickbacks every time that drug is filled through their plan.
Wow. Okay.
There are so many resources for drugs, especially. You can, like Mark Cuban's got this cost plus drugs where you can go to his website and you're paying the wholesale price of the drug plus 15% is what they're operating off of, right? That's which a lot of the times is going to be less than whatever it is you pay elsewhere. So there's a lot of ways. It's just unfortunate to me because the people who need the most financial help are usually the ones that are working multiple jobs. Sometimes they're single parents.
And they don't have time or they just don't. They don't research it.
Yep. So it's what I think is even more important depending on the industry and the type of employee. Like if we are working with lower earners that don't have the time, the resources, what can we put in front of them? Like text this one number and everybody, like the person on the other end will make an appointment for you. Like that's the type of programs that we implement more than like, what's your deductible? Like, no, how are people actually going to use this? How can we facilitate them, using it
easier, simpler? I love that. Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
So you and your husband work together. What's that like? How does that work for you all? What does the structure of your
Sure.
organization look like?
So he's very much the financial strategist.
Okay.
So he's the mastermind behind the strategies for the employers. My job is very much operations, team. I do a lot of our sales as well. So I speak a lot and kind of bring people in and get them excited about the concepts and educate them. And then he actually takes the data and does something with it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of perfect. And
that's a great team.
partnerships can be tough because if you're not filling gaps for one another, it's sort of like, well, why would you have this partnership? So I had my own business and he had his own business. And the only reason that we partnered together was because the stuff that would drain me, talk about burnout, payroll, taxes, lawsuits, like,
I think that would be for anybody, right?
I'd hope so. Not that we have a lot of those, but I'm just saying, like, things like just the really like financially driven decisions. Like, I don't get empowered off of that. Like, I feel sucked with those types of things. Number crunching in Excel all day long. No, thank you. I need to be talking. I need to be educating. I need to be inspiring. So, but he, on the other hand, gets energized by all of that.
Okay.
So it's really just, filling each other's gaps. And then the big lesson after almost 10 years of doing this together is staying out of each other's lane. So like if I am doing X and you are doing Y, as soon as we start to be like, and it's mostly me that's the problem, I'll just want to peek into that lane over there and be like, so what are we doing for this? And it's like, stay out of your lane.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. So, there has been speed bumps, if you will, anytime that I try to leave my lane. Yeah. And it's a good lesson, stay in your lane. And when I'm in my lane and he's in our lane, everything is really great. And the business operates very well. Something else I think that's been important to our success, and it's funny, we have business coaches and they've literally said they coach hundreds of people around the country. They're like, you two are willing to have the hardest conversations that we've ever witnessed. Like most people would run away, but you guys are diving in head first, having really difficult conversations. And I genuinely believe that like the level of discomfort that we're willing to feel in our relationship and the level of like brutal honesty that we can have in our relationship and in our business directly translates to revenue, culture, all the things. And so we're just willing to like be brutally honest with each other.
Well, that's a good marriage tip in general.
There you go.
Yeah, much less like also on the business front. That's amazing. The communication style, what does that look like between you two?
Yeah. So he is incredibly direct.
Okay.
And he's very, he doesn't waste words. Pretty much we could not have a more different communication style. Like I want to give the backstory and the current story and the future where we're going and all the things. And he's just like, what time is the meeting? And I'm like, so this person,
no fluff. Yeah. There's a stat on like how many more words a day women say versus men. It's like drastically different. That's pretty normal.
Yes. So I would say that is a thing. But what really helps is like having one meeting a week where, I used to do this thing where something would come up during the day, multiple times a day, and I would shoot him a text or I'd shoot him an email or I'd shoot him in the chat and I'd be like, hey, what do you think about this? And what I learned is like, I don't do that to my employees. I don't do that to my vendors. I have systems and processes in place that allow me to see what everyone's doing, where we are, tracking our KPIs. Like operationally, I've got a really great tech stack that allows me to not micromanage.
What do you use for that?
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in.
Sure. So we use Salesforce as our major CRM.
Love it.
And built into that is a transparent ticketing system. So every single request from employees, employers, literally anybody that's asking anything of anybody in my agency, that goes in as a Salesforce ticket. Okay. So it generates a number and then it generates a bunch of different data points like what time did this request come in? What's the first response time? How are we ranking this in importance? Is this an urgent request, 1 through 4, or is it a low urgency request? Okay. And then who are we waiting on for it to be resolved? So I can peek into the system and see, okay, this employee is working on 35 requests. Most of them are not urgent. The ones that are urgent, I can jump in and ask if they need help with. I can see, okay, an email came in. yesterday, or a text came in yesterday. They responded within 5 hours, which that's perfect. That's okay. But if I see something where we didn't respond for 48 hours, it's like, hey, everyone knows that it's a 24-hour response rate around here. What happened? But I'm not having to constantly ask them for updates on things because
that's great.
And my clients can see that too.
Okay, that's great.
So I have that for my team. Why then am I bothering my husband 5 times a day when we could just follow the same process the rest of the team follows, right?
That's a great pointer.
Yeah. So either we use the systems everybody else uses, or what we've kind of gravitated to more lately is just a meeting once a week where it's like all the questions that I wanted to ask you all week long, unless they were absolutely urgent, right? And time sensitive, I just wait till then. And you know how great that is, because I've had the time to digest it and come to my own conclusion. I've had it before, transparently, where I lean on him a little too much. You know, I'll be like, oh, like I know how to make these decisions. I have the skills, the expertise, the knowledge to make a decision, but I just always love getting his opinion, you know? And it's like, all I'm doing in those situations is taking up power taking power from myself,
right,
and giving him shit that he doesn't need in his brain. Right? Like I can make that decision.
You can make the decision and you'll be confident in that.
Yeah. And like, why? Sure. So I've kind of given myself a threshold. I'm like, okay, if this is like a $10,000 or more decision, maybe I'll run it by him.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. And I really it's again, staying in our lanes. If this is a decision in my lane, I'm not going to ask your opinion unless, again, it's financially impactful. But
so what are the hard things in growing your business right now?
So, that's a really good question. The hardest things, 5 years ago, the hardest thing was recruiting talent, keeping people, operations, the tech stack. I made that my number one focus, got a bunch of coaching. Now that part of the business is an absolute dream, and we've got an incredible foundation to continue growing on. Today, and I didn't know that this would happen, I feel like the hardest part in the business is me upskilling to a different mindset. It's actually not about skills, sales, service, marketing, even leadership necessarily, which are kind of the 4 pillars of my business. It's not about a lack of skills in there. It's purely the lens in which I see the business through. So my mindset. And my mindset as a college athlete, as somebody that overcame a traumatic brain injury, has always been the harder you work, the better things will be. The more money you'll make, the more lives you'll impact. Work, right? Like effort equals results. What I'm learning now, we hit like multiple 7 figures. And now when I want to hit 8 figures, what I've learned is it's not at all about these hard skills. Right. It's about how I'm viewing every problem that hits my desk. Okay. My mindset. So that has been my biggest hindrance, has been because most of the time, in these earlier years of business, when something would hit my desk, like a problem, I would physically feel it in my body. I would want to fix it right then. Everything was
urgent.
Yeah. And it was like, how much effort are we going to put in? Because in my experience, effort equals results.
Right.
But that's not, now that my business is operating so efficiently, I have the right talent in the right places. Like now what we need to change is how my body, like my nervous system, how is that responding to that problem? Because if I feel stressed out by every problem that hits my desk, what bandwidth do I have to take us to 8 figures?
Absolutely.
I don't. So it's all about the lens in which I'm viewing the world, myself, and my business.
So how do you work on that?
Such a good question. So
I've not asked any of the questions I planned on.
Sorry.
No, we're great. This is so awesome.
So it's all about the operating system that you're essentially just viewing every single thing through. And the key has been curiosity. And I've come into a lot of my business thinking that I know the way to solve everything, right? Like, well, obviously, if I run the business and I've gotten here, like I know what I'm doing, I'm going to solve all the problems. Instead of approaching every single piece of my life with genuine curiosity and not trying to influence an outcome in any which way. So really, number one is curiosity. And the curiosity is how towards myself. Like, what are the brutal truths that I need to tell myself about this situation? Right? Like, one of the brutal truths.
Good, yeah.
And one of the brutal truths for me is, why do you keep going to your husband to make decisions that you can easily make yourself? And I waste 30 minutes of his time, 30 minutes of my time. You will always be a 7-figure business if you're doing dumb shit like that.
Yeah.
Right? So what was the brutal truth? The brutal truth wasn't that I told myself, well, I'm doing that because it's an impactful thing. It's an impactful decision. I want his input. No, the truth, the brutal truth was I didn't trust my business acumen. Okay. I had to read some books. I had to get some coaching. Like,
right.
I had presented myself as this amazing businesswoman, but the truth was
a bit of insecurity.
Yeah. And it was on the financial side of the business. So having a brutal truth and then decisive action has been the next piece. Is like, okay, so once I know the brutal truth and I'm willing to do what I have to do to make it something else, how quickly can I take action? And I think that, like, being curious about everything, being brutally honest with, are you the problem in a situation? And then once you know you're the problem and you figure that out, how quickly am I willing to take action to have a different outcome? So
good.
I hope so.
I need to go think about myself. I have some brutal truths coming.
They're wild.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they're not really like another brutal truth. I'm just going to keep putting myself in the hot seat here. Another brutal truth is I love when in meetings with anybody on my team, I would constantly was like, oh, and by the way, like I always wanted to say the last word or be the one to make the impact. And it's like, that's ego. This person on my team actually is better at this than I am, right? Like,
let them have that.
Yes. Yeah. Shut up. And I can't tell you, since like I've been doing that now for almost a year, and our service team's about to win an award as the top agency in the whole country for their service, getting the recognition they need because they're allowed to be in the spotlight because I am willing to not be my Leo self and take it all up. So there, brutal truths like that. That's the only way. And it's uncomfortable. Whew, it's uncomfortable.
Definitely. Okay. We're going to wrap up.
Okay.
This is Beyond the Handshake podcast. Yeah. So I love what that means. I love what it means for relationship building, but I would love to hear from you how you take your relationships beyond the handshake.
Using Ethos as the way to connect. So really finding out like what the person sitting on the other side or the person I just shook their hand, what is their why? And I know that sounds so simple, but really a lot of the times people's whys aren't actually what they say. It's more, you find it in deeper questions. Yeah. Like asking, so everybody wants to save money on their healthcare. Okay, that's not their why. Right. The question after that is, what are you going to do with that savings? What would that do for you? That's where you get to the why. So for me, Beyond the Handshake is, you meet everybody, all the things, but how do you take that into an ethos-driven relationship where like you're adding value based on their values?
I love that. So perfect. I love the answers I'm hearing from people. This is so good. Okay. So tell us how we can make sure we follow you. You've got your podcast. You've got your book. Yeah. Tell us that real quick.
Sure. So Chelsea Ryckis, LinkedIn is probably the best place to start. On there, you'll find the book, the podcast, the documentary, and all the good things.
Gosh, this has been so good. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.